All right, today we're going to talk about Ruth chapter 3. And if you remember, the story seems to be revolving around Naomi's development, her character from bitterness to joy, but also her relationship with God. So you see from the very beginning of the book, chapter 1, verse 1, she's running away from God in a sense, right? She's leaving the place, the people of God, and she's going to a place who are known for persecuting the people of God, the Moabites, there was a history between them where the Moabites were very cruel to the Israelites at one point in their history. And then we also see that she's leaving the land of Israel, the place where God said he's going to bless his people. She leaves that place. So it seems as though she's kind of abandoned God and went her own way. She settles down in the land of Moab, and she seems like she's happy there, right? And then her husband dies, and her 2 sons die, and she comes back bitter. Not just bitter at her circumstances, but bitter at God. She's blaming God for everything, saying God was the one who has allowed this affliction, saying this is the Almighty God, the God who can do anything. He's allowed this to happen to me. And she's blaming God for what happened to Ruth and Orpah, how they lost their husband. She's like, I'm grieved because the Lord has done this to me, and now you're affected by this. So she seems very upset with God. But then as the story progresses, we see that she starts going back to God, right? She goes back to the place of God. She goes back to the people of God. She goes back to being hopeful. She goes back to blessing people in the name of the Lord. So it seems as though her relationship with God is growing. So in chapter 2, she becomes a lot more hopeful because Boaz comes into the picture, and she's thinking this is the man who has the ability to redeem us, has the ability to marry Ruth and to take care of us. It even says that he's a wealthy man, a mighty man. And to say mighty, it could mean that he's a warrior, or it could mean that he's a noble man. So there's different translations for that particular word. But the point is, she's really excited because he seems to be showing favoritism towards Ruth, making her feel special, and he happens to be a kinsman of Elimelech, her former husband, so he has the right, he has the ability at least, to redeem Ruth. And so she's excited about this. So she tells Ruth, make sure you're always harvesting in his field, make sure you're staying around him, stuff like that. So Ruth is doing this. But by chapter 3, we start getting more of a glimpse into Naomi's matchmaking skills, right? So Naomi, every one of us probably knows someone who's a matchmaker, right? They see 2 people and like, we need to get them together. And Naomi seemed to be one of those people, right? She's thinking they're a perfect match. They're related in a sense, not like they're related by marriage. And they're related in a sense, and he can redeem her by the law, and he's wealthy, and she's so sweet, and he's so kind, and she's so virtuous, and all these different things. So she's thinking this is a perfect match. But Boaz seems to be clueless, right? So she's upset. It doesn't say she's upset, but she's getting kind of excited about this, and Boaz isn't getting a clue. So she's like, Ruth, go get dressed up. Go take a bath, wash yourself off, get cleaned up, put on some ointments, get on some good clothes, because you're going to go see Boaz. And we have to remember this is in stark contrast to what Ruth normally looks like to Boaz. Because Ruth, whenever she's around Boaz, she's working in his fields. Well, what is she wearing when he's working in his fields? Probably some old garments. What does she look like? She's probably sweaty, dirty from all the stuff going around. And so he's not likely he likely has never seen her all dressed up before. So Naomi's like, get dressed up. We're gonna go get ourselves a man today. So she's telling Ruth, go ahead and get dressed up and go to him tonight. So there was something special about that night. There was going to be some threshing. So he was going to be sleeping outside that night. They were going to thresh the barley or whatever they were harvesting, which I believe it was barley. So they were going to thresh the barley, and the men were going to sleep outside, likely to protect the threshing floor, to protect what they've already threshed, what they've already harvested, from people stealing it. So she's like, he's going to be out there that night. So you go ahead, after he's already gone to bed, after he's already started to rest, you go to him, and she says, and uncover his feet. And we might be like, that's kind of weird. Why would she do that? And then Naomi goes on to say, and he'll know what that means. He'll know what to do. So we look at this and we're like, is this an inappropriate request, right? Is she asking Ruth to go do something inappropriate just to kind of get the attention of Boaz? Well, again, if we look at this and it says, go to him and do this thing and he'll know what to do. It seems as though it was a tradition that likely was associated with the kinsman redeemer law. The kinsman redeemer law that says someone who is a kinsman of the former husband can marry the widow because they want to raise up children, they want to take care of the widows and things like that. So this was likely a tradition that came along with that, because Naomi makes it clear he'll know what to do. He knows about this tradition. So Ruth is very obedient. Throughout the entire book, she's obedient. The only time she's not obedient is when Naomi tells her to leave and she refuses, right? And that doesn't say that she's a bad woman. That just says she's a very loyal woman. So Ruth decides she's going to do that. She waits till he's asleep or till he's resting, and she goes to him and she uncovers his feet. So let's go ahead and read, verse 6. And she went down into the floor and did according to all that her mother-in-law bade her. And when Boaz had eaten and drunk, and his heart was merry, he went to lie down at the end of the heap of corn. And she came softly and uncovered his feet and laid her down. And it came to pass at midnight that the man was afraid and turned himself, and behold, a woman lay at his feet. So there's a little bit of integrity when it comes to Boaz in this sense. If someone was to wake up and find a woman at his feet while he's sleeping, and he's not startled or anything, it's probably not a very good man. But Boaz is startled because he's thinking, who is this person? I don't know you. So he's not in a comfortable position. He's kind of startled, and it says, and he said, who art thou? And she answered, I am Ruth, thine handmaid. Spread therefore thy skirt over thine handmaid, for thou art a near kinsman. So again, this looks a little inappropriate, right? She's saying, spread your skirt around me, for you're a kinsman, you're related to me. And we might look at that and be like, what's going on? Again, it's likely not something that's supposed to be inappropriate. It's likely her way of saying, spread your protection over me, cover me with your protection in marriage, because she's saying, you are a near kinsman. And again, Naomi told Ruth, Boaz will know what you mean, right? Boaz knows what this tradition is. He knows exactly what this means. So this was likely a way to propose, a traditional way to propose to someone who is a near kinsman if you want them to redeem you. So she's going through the tradition. She's doing what they were supposed to do. And again, to kind of verify that this was not something that was meant to be immoral, that she was not asking for something inappropriate, he says unto her, blessed be thou of the Lord, my daughter. Not really my daughter, but the point is, he said, blessed are you of the Lord. So why would he say that if she was making an immoral request, right? So chances are she's not making an immoral request. She's just following the tradition of God. And it says, for thou hast shown more kindness in the latter end than at the beginning, inasmuch as thou followest not young men, whether poor or rich. So in other words, she's saying, you haven't been chasing, not you guys, Ruth, you haven't been chasing after all these young men. You haven't been trying to find all these different husbands. You be seeming to be following the law of God. You've been trying to find a kinsman redeemer. So he's saying, blessed are you of the Lord. So he's starting to see that Ruth is wanting to follow the law of God. She left her gods in Moab, and she came to Israel, and she decided she was going to follow the God of Israel and follow the law of Israel. So he's saying, blessed are you because of that. And it seems as though he wouldn't have said that if they were about to break the law of God and sleep together, right? So it says, and now, my daughter, fear not. I will do to thee all that thou requirest. What does he mean? He means, I'll marry you, right? Because Naomi told her, he'll know what this means. It's a tradition that probably had dealt with the kinsman redeemer, a way to propose to your kinsman to redeem you. So he said, I will do what you require. He says, for all the city of my people doth know that thou art a virtuous woman. So he says, I will marry you, not just because of duty, right? But because you are a good woman. You are a virtuous woman. And again, that's more evidence to suggest that this wasn't an inappropriate thing. She wasn't asking him for immoral things. She came to him specifically to do some traditional way of proposing to him. And he understood what she was trying to do. And he says, you're a virtuous woman. You're blessed of the Lord. Things you wouldn't say to a woman who just asked you for something immoral. So nothing seemed to happen immoral in this situation. So if you ever hear that they did something wrong, probably not true. So he says that he is willing to marry her. He wants to marry her because she is a virtuous woman. But then he goes on to say that there's another person, another relative of Elimelech who's closer relation to you, in which case he would have the first right to marry you. So I'll go talk to him. If he wants to marry you, then great. Boaz is a nice guy. He's like, I'll step out of the picture. I just want you taken care of. It says, but if he doesn't, then I will marry you. So he says, just stay here overnight, because it was probably night. It was already dark. It said it was midnight. So he probably didn't want her traveling home alone where she could get hurt and stuff like that. So it was probably for her own protection. So he says, just stay here tonight. In the morning, you can leave and go back to your mother-in-law. And he gives her gifts, and she brings it back to her mother-in-law. And her mother-in-law is so excited. She's like, oh my goodness, he has agreed to marry you. And if not, then someone else is going to marry you because of the other kinsman, the other relative. But she's just so excited about this. And she even tells Ruth, she says, don't worry, he's not going to be able to sleep until he gets this matter settled. So we see the end of chapter 3, Naomi is super excited about what's going on. Ruth is still a loyal and noble woman, a very virtuous woman, and that's how the chapter 3 ends. And hopefully we can pick up in chapter 4 next week.
Hey everyone, if you liked the video, then feel free to click the like button. If you want to see more content like this one, then we recommend clicking subscribe and hitting the bell so that you can be notified anytime a video is uploaded or live streamed. Thank you.